Well, thanks for joining in. Feel free to keep adding your comments if you like. I'd like to introduce Bon Appetit's registered dietitian, Leslie Mathiasmeier. And she's here today to have a little conversation because this time of year, as any, nutrition has always been so popular and a relevant topic where people are always asking about various things with nutrition. I realize we only have 15 minutes today, so we will get going. And I just wanted to start it off by asking Leslie, like, if she had to give somebody three top nutritional tips, like, what are your three general, like, nutritional tips that you would give people?
Um, Goodness, I always think that like having to narrow it down to three is so tough because there are so many different parts of nutrition, and as you can tell by the chat, so many different things that people are focusing on. But I would say my number one, and I say this is number one because most people, most Americans at least, do not get and as much of this as they're supposed to, not anywhere close, is eating more fruits and vegetables and getting more fiber. So most Americans are not eating enough fruits and vegetables and are not meeting their fiber requirements. And I start with saying fruits and vegetables because those, if you were to increase those, you would also get the added impact of increasing your fiber as well. So that's always my number one. Eat more fruits and vegetables. There's so many more. There's so many benefits as far as your satiety, the getting the micronutrients that come along with those. If you are conscious about your energy needs, fruits and vegetables have lower energy than something more processed like a sugar or fat, those different types of things. So adding those into your meals is really beneficial. So I always start with saying fruits and vegetables for all of their benefits and the added fiber that goes along with them. The second one that I think is important when it comes to nutrition is look at the things that you can add versus always looking at what do I need to take away from my diet in order to reach my nutrition goals. So often we look at, oh, I need to not have any soda throughout the entire day, or I want to take away sugar, and those are all good goals, but how can you flip those goals on their heads and say, okay, what can I add in order to reach that goal? So can I add more water in throughout my day, which makes it so I don't drink as much soda? I don't really like the flavor of just plain water, so maybe am I adding some lemon or some lime or some mint into my water to make it taste better? Those different types of things. If you are wanting to get more protein, how can you look at maybe one of your snacks and say, I want to add a protein source into my snack? So think about nutrition in the ways of how can I add something in order to get to my goal versus always thinking restriction, restriction, restriction. What can I take away?
I love that. That's such
Yeah,
a good one
yeah,
because,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like with resolutions and diets and fitness, it's always like, what am I doing wrong? So, hence kind of why I wanted
yes,
to start something like, what are we doing right? So, I love that one. What
yeah,
about your
yeah.
third? Do you have a third that you can narrow it down to?
I think like my third is always remember that food and nutrition, it should be something that is enjoyable. Food is delicious. You want food to taste good. And always remember when you are say you are adding more fruits and vegetables, think about ways that you can make them taste good and that you're going to enjoy them. Because no matter what, if you try to force yourself to like certain foods just because someone online told you or you think you have to eat it, it's not going to be something that's sustainable and you stick with for the long haul. So find nutrition habits, foods, all of those things that you really truly enjoy, so that you can make those changes to be sustainable.
Excellent. I know that was I'm impressed. That was a tough to narrow it down to three, so I think those are great. How about another question we get oftentimes is on food preparation, like how to make it efficient, time-saving ways, or like to streamline food preparation, also maintaining a healthy diet. What are your tips for food prep?
Mhm. Um, I think it kind of depends on kind of what boat you're in. If right now you like don't really have like a way to prep and you're kind of just like put meals together as you would go. Um, Try to find some way of having something that looks like a plan, and a plan looks different for everyone. Maybe think about just planning breakfast for the week and knowing, okay, I'm going to have these overnight oats for 5 days out of the weeks and some hard boiled eggs or something like that. Like start something small and try to plan one meal out of the week, and do your grocery list from that, all of those different things. If you're someone who has kind of got the planning down but doesn't really like have it nailed down, like try to plan more from there: lunch, dinner, snacks, all of those things, to have a comprehensive grocery list. Again, depending on kind of how prepared you already are. If you are not someone who wants like a list of I'm going to eat this and this and this every day, think about bulk foods that you can then put together to make certain meals. So maybe it's you are buying a larger amount of chicken and you are grilling it all off once we get to the weather where you could grill it, or cooking it off however you want. And then you have that as your protein source. And then you're going to have some fruits and some vegetables, and you have those in your pantry. And you can add those into a dish. And then you're going to have some more like starchy carbs or grains and things like that. And you can take any one combination of those different foods, starting with your protein, then maybe picking a vegetable, and then picking one of your grains, and you can toss it together with different types of sauces to make different meals. So let's say we wanted to go more like Asian inspired. You're going to get some chicken and some broccoli and some brown rice, and you're going to put a little bit of teriyaki sauce on it. And that's going to be your meal, and that's okay. The next day, you're going chicken, and you're going to get some chickpea pasta, and then you're going to have a side of broccoli, and you're going to put some marinara on top of the chickpea pasta and the chicken, something like that. So you're not really focusing necessarily on I have to have these like really specific recipes, but am going through and just saying, am I checking the boxes? Do I have a protein? Do I have some grains? And do I have some vegetables? So make it a little bit simple on yourself that way.
Nice. Have you used AI for any meal prep and planning?
I have, yeah. I will sit and like I've messed around with there's different prompts that you can Google
Mm.
out there, but there is, because I we plan like everything out. That's kind of just what our system is in our home. But you do get to those times when you are just that mental block of like nothing sounds good. I don't know what to plan. So I'll use AI and put in a prompt that says, I have all these things in my pantry. Give me a meal plan for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it'll do that. There's I caution against doing it in some ways because you'll get some quirky answers sometimes from depending on what you use. But it is sometimes a good stepping off point. Yeah.
Yeah. My neighbor friend, she's used it and it will be like plan a meal for four, a meal plan for dinner for the week under $150. And
Hmm.
they'll like do it and less. Now I haven't looked at it to see like how healthy it is. Maybe she's saying healthy dinners under a certain amount, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. I should play around with that a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And then, like getting into the last topic before we take questions was calorie or macro counting, and like what your thoughts are on that, and how this approach can align, or maybe it doesn't align with people's overall goals. Like, how do you feel about calorie and
Hmm.
macro counting? Sorry.
Macro counting. Yeah. Um, so with anything, when we talk about different approaches to eating habits, so whether you choose a diet like intermittent fasting or keto or Mediterranean diet or whatever you choose, or if macro counting is what you choose, there's always kind of like different tools in the toolbox. So for some people, one of those will work, while for the other people, it won't work. So always recognizing what works for you is what's important when you're going into kind of these more like specific diet type of things, if you will. And macro counting does kind of fall into that realm. And so looking at something like counting macros, let's look at like some of the pros. For a lot of people who count macros, it gives them some awareness around what macronutrients are in different foods. So for example, knowing that if you have black beans in a taco bowl, oh, you're getting some carbohydrates in there, and you're also getting some protein. And then depending on what you're using to track, you're also seeing there's lots of fiber in those foods too. So it's just that general awareness a lot of people will get from macro counting, and also recognizing what kind of reasonable portions of foods are. It can help them with that. There's also the accountability piece that comes along with macro counting and all of those things. I will say, though, on kind of the flip side of that, some of the cons are that it is something that takes a lot more time than just like eating intuitively or putting into practice some other things like maybe like the plate method, something that's a little bit more, again, yeah, like intuitive. And so it could be a little bit more restrictive for someone, and it could be something that is a little bit cumbersome for their daily life. For like, I think about someone who has a busy job plus a lot of activities, or maybe kids with activities and all of those things. You have time to sit down and count macros. It might not be something that works for your life. And then with that, for some people that kind of that need to track and that like focus on tracking can become something that's kind of steers them away from their overall goals and makes it so they feel like they have to track all of the time in order to be successful. And that can lead to some unhealthy relationships with food, especially in the long term, because you can't, I guess in theory you could count macros forever, but would you want to count macros forever? So it's sometimes, I've used it for some people. We start there just to bring that awareness, but then we work on alongside having macros. You're working on the skills to know how to eventually drop macros and eat more intuitively and fuel your body in the right way and get your full nutrition. So just another tool in the toolbox. I suggest working with a professional when it comes to macros. You're going to see, especially about this time of year, a lot of people who are wanting to give you your custom macros out there. Unless it's coming from a dietitian, I give you, like, take a second to think about the source in which you're getting your macronutrient recommendations and what they're giving you. Again, a dietitian's going to be your best source for that information, because they're looking at the full picture when it comes to macronutrients versus just sending you something that maybe doesn't have as much thought about it. So yeah, hope that
That's why we're
answers
so
the
lucky
question.
to have you here, Leslie. Thank you. And a high five, Leslie. We made it under 15
Yeah,
minutes.
we made it
Covered
right up
it.
until we got like
So
45
for
seconds
anyone, I
left.
know, yeah. So anyone that has to go, I understand. And I'll continue recording for anyone that wants to stay on, and I'll send out the recording. But for any questions, I know my team was kind of following the questions so that Leslie and I weren't disrupted. So if there's something in here, there's a lot of comments. I love it. But go ahead and speak up if there's any questions. I know there was one on the intermittent fasting, which they said like wasn't for everybody, but that they intermittent fast. What are your views on that, Leslie?
Again, like it's something that could work for the individual. I think always remembering that you are going to go in and out of different eras of life and different changes of life, and where intermittent fasting may work now, but later it may not be something that works as well for you. So just knowing what to do if you need to come out of a certain specific diet like that. There are certain medical conditions that I would say don't work well for intermittent fasting, specifically ones that have to do with managing blood sugar. If you have to manage your blood sugar for any one reason, intermittent fasting isn't typically what is recommended. Again, though, work with a professional to kind of best understand if that does work for you. And if it does, what can you do after?
Thanks. Anyone else have questions? You can, yeah, go ahead, Isaac. He's been watching the chat.
Yeah, well, mainly just a lot of great statements from people. So one of them I thought was really cool was Doug said, we created frozen veggie cubes at home consisting of 30 veggies, herbs, spices chopped up, and we mix them into our meals each day. Healthy gut, pre-made, easy to add. So I thought that was a good thing as far as meal prep when asked about that. And then Jacob also has a source here of facts on food and whatnot too. So not a lot of like questions so far, besides how many fruits and vegetables should you have a day was the only one. And Kyle put a source on there already of how much you should have. But Leslie, how many would you recommend fruits and vegetables a day?
Usually 5, but I say 5, and like you can get more, like more than that is fantastic too, but 5 is usually where you should be. Um and I always like, if there's one thing, kind of going back to macros and all those things, if there's one thing to not count, I would say it's fruits and vegetables, because again, most people aren't hitting their goals. You're rarely going to overdo it, whatever your goal is as far as kind of controlling in your diet. You're rarely going to overdo it when it comes to your nutrition by eating more fruits or more vegetables, no matter which ones they are. So try to get 5. More is awesome too.
Awesome. And then we have one more question here that came in. Any tips for healthy eating, especially with protein, for those following a vegan diet?
I mean, with a vegan diet, especially with protein, it's looking at your meals and trying to make sure those different like pieces of the plate all have a sort of protein with them. So, especially if you have higher protein needs, usually that's going to be something that's a little bit more of a condensed protein source, like tofu or tempeh or seitan. One of those things is going to be just a higher protein source. But then pairing it with other protein foods, like beans or whole grains or seeds, like sunflower seeds are a great source of protein. So you're getting all of those in there too. For some individuals, depending on their protein needs, if they are vegan or vegetarian, you also could look at supplementation. But for the most part, you still can hit your protein goals as a vegan or vegetarian by eating those whole foods. It's just making sure that a lot of the different things that you're eating have protein included in them. So, yeah.
Awesome. So we're starting to get the questions filtering in here. I guess one that um, came up here was, how does protein intake or how does intake affect weight loss or gain? Does too much cause weight gain if you aren't strength training? Um, yeah. And then Yeah, why don't you go with that one?
You want to go with that one? Yeah.
Mhm.
So protein is one of our macronutrients. Our three macronutrients are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Those three macronutrients are the ones that, when they're broken down, they give our bodies energy. And when we're talking about our bodies, energy, the kind of measure of that is calories. So from those three macronutrients, you will get calories. And our bodies will either maintain, so stay right here, or they will lose or gain weight once they kind of go past either above our maintenance level of energy or calories, or below. You'll lose if you go below the kind of maintenance of whatever your body is maintenance amount of calories are. So with protein intake, since protein is giving us calories, if you eat too much protein and brings you up above your like kind of maintenance level, yes, you can gain weight. And in the inverse, you can lose weight by not having as much protein. But that goes for any of the macronutrients as well, carbohydrates or fat. When it comes to strength training specifically for protein, the reason you have that protein, why it's necessary for strength training, is to build muscle, to build stronger, more efficient, more agile, whatever it is, muscle like type of training you're doing. And you get those building blocks from protein. So kind of two different things we're talking about in there. You want to build muscle in order to have more lean mass, which does help with maintaining proper or like a good maintenance level of weight. But I mean, anything eaten in excess can lead to weight gain, but protein you would need for strength training. So it's a little bit nuanced there because protein gives us does some different things for that.
Good answer there. Um, all right, I'm gonna say one. Let's see. Yeah, we got some time. Let's see. What can you tell us about carb cycling? How long might it take for someone new to carb cycle to see the positive effects with energy levels and fat loss? I guess if
Um, so with carb cycling, it's going to be dependent. Like not everyone is going to be the same as far as like the positive effects or negative effects to that matter, right? Because we all kind of had like a starting point of how many carbohydrates were you eating to begin with. Like all of us are a little bit different in there. So if you start kind of introducing some change like carb cycling, you're going to have a different effect than like myself or Kelly or Kyle or Isaac, any of us who kind of eat and have different eating patterns. So the timing is going to look different for a little bit of everyone. When it comes to carb cycling, it is one of those things that it does take a little bit more of like attention to make sure that you're getting the carbs in the right kind of timing throughout the day. There's the you want to be mindful, like if you are someone who is exercising, to make sure that your carb amounts that you're having carbs still before your workout, if that part's in there. But I think it's tough to say. It's hard to say specifically, okay, it's going to start in this time and end in this time for that.
Yeah, and sorry, there's one question that I must have skimmed over, and it's a good one. I think it's just curiosity about just overall thought on protein drinks and bars, like just yeah, picking your brain on that exactly. Is it good, bad, neutral, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, for some people, a protein drink or a bar helps them meet their protein needs because it's a function of their life, whether it be like convenience or just like, what's easy for them. If you're someone who's busy and has a lot of things going on and you have a higher protein need or a goal of meeting more protein, it might be easier for you to drink a protein shake or eat a protein bar than it is to sit down and eat a chicken breast or, those different types of things. And that's totally okay. I always look at those items as, are they something that are going to help you achieve your goal? Are they necessary for everyone? Not at all. But if having one of those bars makes it so you meet your protein goals, then they're absolutely necessary for you and how your kind of life functions. When it comes to like good or bad or like which ones are best, those different types of things, I think it comes down to, in some ways, taste preferences. Some of them people like more than others. I know I have my like certain ones that I like better than others, so that's always a part of it. There might be certain pieces of them that are more important to certain individuals. For example, if you're more plant-based, you're looking for one that's more plant-based, so go for that one. If you're wanting to have less added sugar, there's some with less added sugar and have, limited ingredients. Kind of comes down to more personal preference in there. But if the main function is you need more protein, and functionally and like the way that your life works, a protein bar or a shake is the way that you can meet those protein goals, then that's what works for you. So it's okay.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone for sharing like their ideas. It helps to like just to see what people have tried, what they like. I think, Doug, we could make you some money with a business if you send us those veggie cubes to all of us. That's an amazing idea. So
Yeah, sign me up for that too.
yeah,
That
that
sounds
would be
awesome. I think that's all the main questions that I'm seeing here. So
Yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you, Isaac, for helping out and everyone for staying on, and Leslie for all of your time and expertise. I always enjoy talking with you, always learning something new, and I love your approach to that, adding things. And so really thank you for adding all this value to our Coaches Corner today.
Of course, yeah.
I
And
will
thanks for
send
everyone
everyone
for their commentary in the chat. There's some awesome recommendations in there. It's cool.
And I will be sharing this with everyone. So I will share the recording and then send you the next invite for the next Coaches Corner, which is going to be on hormone health. So Jill and I will be talking hormones. Woo. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.